I'm going to make a very simple bread. It's made out of 3 basic ingredients, which is flour, water and some yeast. I'm going to add a couple more things to it because you can. Right? I really like making bread. The science that goes with it, the fact that you're using your own ingredients, you can pick the quality of your ingredients, you can change the flour type, you can change the heat source, so it's a genuinely good experience. First of all, we have flour. We have 450 to 500 grams, weigh it out, put it in a bowl. A big bowl is very useful to have. We have some water, which is what they call blood warm, which is heated up in a kettle, left to cool, but when you feel it, it's still warm. And finally, we have some yeast. I'm using an instant yeast, but you can use better quality yeast. You can use natural yeast. Also, I'm just going to add some mixed seeds. We have flax seeds, we have pumpkin seeds, and we have sesame seeds. So that's 3 seeds. A little bit of salt. Little bit. Salt is very important for extending the lifetime of the dough, which means that you won't wake up in the morning and your bread is gone hard. You get 2 or 3 days out of it. I also like to add a little bit of honey, just so that we can add a bit of sweetness to it. It also enhances, it also improves the biological action of the yeast. So we'll get straight into it. You get your flour, you get your yeast, you throw it in, you get your salt, you throw it in, you get your seeds, you throw it in, you mix it up. Now, the quantity of the water will depend on the flour. So you just put enough. What have I got? I have 400 milliliters here. I'm not really sure whether we're going to use that. We might end up using a bit more. So what you do is you make a well in the center. You pour the water in, little by little. You mix it from the center and just mix it. As if you're mixing cement. You can see already the water is starting to mix up with the flour. You see it? It's getting, look. So what you do is you mix it, and you have to be very careful with the quantity of water, because suddenly it will just become a very wet mix. So add another little bit, mix it in. It gives you good muscles as well. You have to mix it for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Depends on it depends on what's in the mix. You can add a lot of different things. For example, instead of using seeds, you could add spices. You could create kind of an Indian style bread, or you could create herbs, or you could use sun-dried tomatoes. You could use anything, whatever you want. You can see now the 400 milliliters is almost gone now. But you can also see that the texture of the mix is becoming more fluidy. And at one point in this, you're going to have to start using your hands. So what I like to do is, obviously you make sure your hands are clean beforehand, but also have some water in a sink, because when the dough gets on your fingers, it's quite difficult to get off, so you're going to have to be able to remove it quickly. Okay. Now, you can see that this dough now is quite malleable. I'm going to add another bit of flour to this now, because there's too much water gone in. Oh, forgot the honey. I'm going to add some honey. Right. At this stage you can see that it's quite, you know, you can see that it's starting to gel together. So what you do now is you knead it. And it's still too sticky. If it's too sticky, if it's on your hands like this, you need to add more flour. And add it in small bits so that you can. Okay, so now the dough is starting to come together. You can see the way I'm kneading it. I'm pulling it back with my hands and I'm pushing it in with my palm. And you knead it for 5 minutes. I'm basically doing exactly the same thing as a bread machine would be doing, except this is using less electricity. It's also providing you with a bit of a workout in your hands. Right, so that is your essential bread with seeds, honey. I didn't add any oil to it. Sometimes people add oil to it. It gives a little bit of elasticity in the bread. The thing is that you can use the most expensive oil or you could use the cheapest oil, but it doesn't matter, because when the temperature of the oven gets to a certain rate, the oil loses all its value, its beneficial value. Now, the nice thing about using a bowl is that you can do this. You can roll the bread. It adds a little bit of heat to the actual dough, which promotes the yeast to work. Oh, that's done. So let's guess what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to put it into the fridge and leave it overnight. There's two ways. You can leave it overnight, or you can leave it in somewhere hot for an hour. For example, if you have a hot press or somewhere up high in the kitchen, what you do is you put it in, you lightly oil a bowl. You put the dough in and you put a plastic bag around it, which creates a little ecosystem for the yeast to work. It will then double in size overnight or within the hour, and then what we have to do is knock it out. Okay, I'm going to set that aside and I'll get. I prepared the dough last night and it's the same as just what we've done. It started doubling in size. So now what we're going to do is what is termed knocking out the dough. It's basically the next step. First step is making the dough. The second step is knocking the dough out. So you get the dough, you can pull it back there, because the bowl has been slightly oiled. The dough will come off quite readily, like this. You see there's a sponge out forming in it. You put it onto the floor. Put it onto the floor. Okay, and you knock it back. That's basically what you do. You just flatten it. You pull it back to the sides. Pull it back like so. Push it down. Pull it back like this. Pull it down. And what you're doing is you're adding a bit of air to it, but you're also adding a little bit of. You're just reminding it that it needs to pop back up again. No, that's it knocked out. Okay. The next thing is to. Hey, that's hot. Might be a bit too hot now. Okay, so the next thing is we want to put this dough onto this pan. The problem is that this pan has been in a heated oven, so I can't necessarily put it straight on or it will start baking. We put the dough on. It needs about 1 hour to start rising again. The yeast will start its second fermentation, which will cause it to double in size again. It's then when it can be popped into the oven. And that's a lot cooler now. Okay, so we'll just put a bit of flour on this. Okay. You take the dough and we'll put some flour on the dough. This will give it a kind of a nice crispy crust. like this. And what you can do is take a knife, and you can make a design on it. In this case, we'll crisscross it. Now that needs to go somewhere warm for approximately an hour. So what I tend to do is put it up somewhere high, cover it with a tea towel. Like so, and then put it somewhere high. The hot air will rise up here, causing the dough to rise. You just have to make sure it doesn't fall on your head. And we'll check that now in an hour. The dough has risen. It's been about one and a quarter hours. You can see that I've also dusted it a little bit. What I'm going to do now, I've preheated the oven to 180 degrees. This is a fan assisted oven, so it tends to get a bit warmer. Every oven acts different as well. So we're going to put it in 180 degrees for 25 minutes, and we'll check it, and then we'll see what happens. Okay? There we go. We just wait now for 25 minutes. The bread has been in the oven now for about 23-24 minutes. I'm just going to check it, and how you do that is you obviously take a cloth and watch out for the heat. And let me just say, with a conventional non-fan assisted oven, you would be looking at 220 degrees Celsius. What I've been doing is 180 because it's fan assisted. So you'll open the oven. You can see that the crust is formed. You can see that the flour at the top has solidified a bit. So how you check the bread is you take the bread out and you turn it over very slightly and you tap to underneath. And you can hear that. You can see it. You can see this. You can hear that it's a hollow sound from it. I actually think this bread may be cooked, so what I'm going to do is take it out and we'll leave it sit. We'll leave it sit, and it will continue cooking for the next 10-15 minutes while it stays hot, and a crumb might form better. So what we can do is just leave it there. We can turn the oven off and put the kettle on. To finish off, we're just going to cut the bread to see the consistency of the crumb, and to see it's still warm, so let's have a look. Okay, from this slice you can see the crust itself is quite well formed. You have a crumb, which is obviously the crumb. It's a very versatile element to cooking because you can use it for stuffings, you can use it as a starch replacement for sauces, you can use it for a variety of things. We have a lot of air pockets here, and that's from the kneading and the knocking back. You can also see that it's ready for eating. So that's it. Best of luck with your own bread making.